Ryan.
Good afternoon, everybody, and we got a turnaround Wednesday today in the markets. You got positive prices. We have ADP private payrolls, jobs getting added again after a decline in September. ADP, 42,000 jobs get added in October. We got that number at 8:30 a.m. this morning. And markets, I'm zooming in on 8:30. And there it is. You can see we take off, we pull back, you test where we were at 8:30, and it's been positive territory since then. We've been chopping around for about the last 2.5 hours. You talk about a tight trading range, right? Right there. Talking about like 2 to 3 points almost. For most of that trading session, the last 2.5 hours, S&P's up by 0.7% or 50 points in the green at 68.51. As I mentioned on the update there, we are at basically where we were yesterday morning. You back this up again. And that's also the lows of Friday, the lows of Thursday, okay, the lows of Monday, and the highs of Tuesday. 68.50. Look at this area on this S&P, folks. So, yeah, if you were looking for an area that this market could bounce to and potentially pull back from, that would be it. You back it up even a little further than that, and that's the gap from where you were on the weekend, October 23rd, the higher price from there. You pull back and test that area basically on last Thursday, and that's where we are right now. That's an hour chart looking at on the S&P. NASDAQ 100, similar action, right? You look at where we were the lows of Thursday to where we are right now, and the open yesterday. But right now you got the NASDAQ up by 1.1%. Dow, right back to where we were in that acceleration on last Thursday as well. Dow up 0.7%. And how about the Russell? 1.9% for the Russell. A little bit of a different story on that chart. You're breaking out of that downtrend channel that we've been in for the better part of this week in the Russell. You're up by 1.9%. How's that one for yields? Pulling up the 10-year right now. We got the 10-year down by 15 ticks, 112.10. 4.16, just like that, 4.16 on the 10-year. Jump over the dollar right now, 100.18. And, you get a strong jobs number this morning. Considering what Chairman Powell said following that October meeting, we start getting decent jobs numbers. They're going to be much less worried about employment, and they're going to begin at least acknowledging inflation that's near 3%, and that's why you see rates drift to higher territory. And yeah, AMD, you talk about a comeback, man. You drive lower on their numbers, the market says, no, we're going higher, up by 3% right now. Micron sales, look at that one. Trading up 9.5%, up $21 from Micron. And you jump around to some of the stories of the day in the Supreme Court. So I listened to some of these oral arguments, and it's just so interesting, number one, to hear great legal scholar minds, no matter what, and great points on both sides of this debate, okay? They seem pretty skeptical. And I made one comment in the den when I was listening to it about Gorsuch, and I said, giving him the business. Mr. Sauer, is that how you pronounce it? And boy, he did a great job as well in terms of the Solicitor General for this administration. Great arguments. You can tell the intelligence in the room and the arguments that are getting made. But yeah, he seemed pretty skeptical in terms of the separations of powers, almost chuckling at a couple points of saying that the handoff to the president of this ability, right? The Constitution gives tariff power to Congress, not the president. If the court were to accept that argument, the Congress can delegate that power, okay, which is in the IEPA, then what could they delegate? They just delegate anything? Because that's what he was saying. It was a listening to the way he was hitting him. And what happens is so you had the administration representing 40 minutes. Their case went first, okay? And then you had the other side, the people, the small businesses, going against the plaintiffs, right? Going against the tariffs, presented second. They both took questions, and they did seem skeptical, okay? But it's not clear one way or the other, because the administration the Solicitor General kicked off their case. So you got to hear the Supreme Court justices pressing the administration and their case, and that's where you heard Gorsuch saying, come on, you're telling me that they could just hand off anything in theory? What would prevent them from just abdicating all responsibility to regulate foreign commerce? And then you got the plaintiff side. And on that side of things, okay, there were great points to be made on that side as well. In terms of, one in here, and as they pointed, okay, you had Gorsuch, and that's where this article here is linking to this part where he really was talking about the separations of power. You had John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, questions that suggested they had deep reservations about that policy, okay? But as they put it, the justices also made great points and were skeptical of the other side of the challenge, right? Talking about that they do have the ability to potentially have embargoes so you can stop all goods from coming in, right? The authority to block all foreign imports entirely, but not to tax those same goods. The tax deal is a big deal. I feel like they're going to go against it. And listen, I am not a Supreme Court scholar, okay? It was amazing to listen to. It's going to be a real part of history, either way, how they decide. It was a 2.5-hour meeting. And the case that the Trump attorney was making, the Solicitor General, not the Trump attorney, right? It's our attorney, in theory. It's the administration's, but it's the Solicitor General who's arguing this case in front of the Supreme Court for the administration, is that these tariffs were not put in place to raise taxes, that they were put in place as a tool of the president, and that they are not revenue-raising tariffs in any manner, and so they are a tool of the president for foreign negotiations. They're going to raise $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That's the tough part about where they fall. And yeah, where do they go from here? They acknowledge it's going to be a mess to unwind it. The plaintiff attorney had talked about that one of the things they could do is just make them forward going, so there'd have to be no refunds in there. But it seems like they were a little skeptical. And taxes have always been a big one. Taxes without representation, the Congress having the power of purse, and it seemed like that's the side that they were airing. So what does that mean, right? Well, we're going to get to see it play out, and it's going to be weeks or really months before that decision comes out. But you're seeing some of the movement. And as I'm watching the move in, whether it's yields, whether it's the dollar, I don't think it's playing in today, but you better believe it's going to. Money is going to start moving on that oral argument. We're coming back, folks. Markets in the green.